Yo, what's happening? It's another edition of the ATL Three Style Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Lee OG, man, and we got a live one today, man. Got a live podcast today. Because guess what, people? The World Cup is underway, and we here to talk about it and a few other things as well as it pertains to sports in general and the ATL. But before I get any further, man, I gotta kick it over to my co-host, and then we'll do a round robin because as y'all see, we got some guests. But I gotta kick it over to my boy Banks, man. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, Leo? Leo, what's good? Reg, what's good, Rocks?
Yeah, man, we kicking it, man. Like you just said, man. Y'all already see it. Y'all already know what time it is. Like I said, it's World Cup, man. So I had to bring the gang on, man, to talk about it, man, because it is a lot to talk about, man. So first off, this dude don't need no introduction. Y'all know what it is, man. My capo, my boy from the footy MOB, my boy Reg. What's going on?
Man, what is going on, fellas, and everybody else? Always good to be here.
Man, absolutely. We appreciate you coming on, man, to get it cracking and talk a little bit of soccer that's going on, man, a little World Cup, man. And last but not least, the dude from the NYC, man, to hold it down. When we talk about soccer, man, got to talk about my boy Rocks up there representing the NYC, man. What's going on, Rocks?
We here, baby. Appreciate being on the show as always. Excited to chop it up, man. It's World Cup time. It's a great time. Despite everything that's going on, being able to participate in a moment like this that only comes every 4 years. Good vibes, man. Good vibes.
Absolutely. And no matter how you're able to participate, man, whether it's just watching at the crib or if you're in the city where you can check out a fan fest or if you're blessed enough to be able to check out a game, man, it's definitely, like Rod said, a vibe, man, to check this out. It goes down every 4 years, man. And you can just feel it. We talked about some of the landscape of it before we got into it, geopolitically and how it was like, man, is it, everybody was feeling some type of way from the prices to the political climate. But then when they laced them up and they kicked it off, I think everybody as sports fans was like, yo, it's here now. Let's fire this up, man. We got several weeks of some passion, man. The world has come here, man, and it is going down. We've already had several great games, and we'll talk about them here in just a second. Before we get into it, man, I always got to hit my boy Phil up, Eastland's Woodworking. Y'all see that QR code, man. Y'all hit them up, man, for some stuff. Father's Day coming up, man. Grab some stuff for Daddy's Day. Hit them up, man. And like I said, we look forward to got a couple other partners, man, that we're gonna be featuring here in just a minute on the show. Banks, listen, we about to get into it, man. So I hope you got it ready, teed up for me, Reds, and Rocks. We're gonna talk about World Cup underway 2026. First game off the rip, Mexico versus South Africa in Mexico City. Banks, if you didn't get up to watch this one, brother, let me tell you something, man. I think that Mexico came and they showed up and showed out as one of the countries representing the North American, man, the North American three. So they win their first game 2-1 here. It was a game that was kind of crazy, and we'll get into it a little bit, Banks. But man, the first game did not disappoint my brother. Mexico and South Africa, they took that one 2-1 down there in Mexico City, Azteca, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe the final score is 2-0, Leo. Mexico beat South Africa is 2-0. Yes, I caught a couple of glimpses of highlights of a couple of these matches. But my attention was on one match, but I'll let you segue into that. So
absolutely, I'll segue into that in just a minute, man. We know what you was on, Reg, man. Mexico versus South Africa opened this thing up, man. Like I said, like Banks corrected me on the score 2-0. It was a little squirrely. It was a little crazy. Like I said, Mexico showed up, showed out, man. The crowd was rowdy. Everybody was into it, man. And Mexico didn't disappoint. It's a different El Tre team that I've seen in the past. Like, I'm used to seeing in different players, but, I think they maybe went a little younger. I mean, like some of the familiar players that Ochoa, I mean, I think he's still out there on the bench, but looks like they kind of switched it up a little bit down there with Mexico.
Yeah, I was actually impressed, unfortunately, because I was really pulling for South Africa, but you playing at Azteca, man. I don't think they worried about the altitude. They kind of play high up over there in South Africa too, and I also think they're used to hostile environments, but Azteca's a whole. You think intimidation, but it's wild over there. But it got real. We had 3 red cards, man. South Africa got 2 of them. I was like, look. you have to maintain your composure, man. And at some point, they got overly emotional, and they lost the hand on the game, man. And you want to, if you're trying to get out the group, you cannot be that way moving forward.
Absolutely, like you said, man. This is, it's definitely a marathon and not a sprint. You got to kind of, like you said, keep your composure, because there's a lot of games to be played. So I mean, they still got a chance to get into, this is, I think, the most field of countries that we've seen. So if you get out of group stage, you'll actually enter into the round of 32. Rock, your thoughts on the first game, man, that fired up last week, Mexico versus South Africa?
Mid. Mexico is mid, bro. That's part facts and part hate, right? Like, I'm never going to be, rooting for them, but the other part is, in a game like that, you are a co-host nation. You gotta, you shouldn't have no red card. Like, you're at home, get yourself in order. Why are you getting a player sent off in the first game of the tournament? Like, that's just, come on now. And then 2-0, solid result. A win is a win. But you need to be putting it on whoever is coming to your house and let them know, this me right here. I don't care who you are, what nation you came from, big, small, anywhere in the middle. When you come over here, we finna show you something. And they didn't really do that for me, right? It was emotional. It was out of control. They got the 2 goals and took the win, but you're going to need more than that to get deep in this tournament. So for me, mid.
Well, I mean, hey, they, like you said, they one of the co-host nations, man. They gonna want some smoke. Everybody was fired up about it, but like, hey, they sitting on top right now in that group, and we'll see how we go from there. So listen, here's the big game that we want to talk about, and I know Banks is itching to get into it, man. We're gonna talk about several games though, but this is one that was on everybody's TV, man, on Friday night. It was the USA out in LA taking on Paraguay, man, and they didn't disappoint, man. 4-1. I think that's cool. I think I got that score line right. 4-1. They didn't look back, man. It was hardcore. I think it was 3 in the first half, if I'm not mistaken, by the US. It was man, they look good. I'll give my thoughts here in just a second. Banks, no, you probably check that one out, man. So what your first thoughts on seeing the United States in their opening game of this World Cup?
I wasn't really sure about what to expect watching the World Cup. I don't recall feeling this excitement on the last World Cup. I was at work on Friday, and a lot of people was glued to the TV, and so was I. I was sitting there watching it. Didn't really think I was going to have that much of a rooting interest of it, but it was, soccer enthusiasts and casuals alike was sitting there like hanging on every play, hanging on every minute, every second. And once we got those goals, man, it was like elation, man. It was like, wow, I forgot how that felt. It's like once you on that particular stage and you go out there, you put on a show like that, man, you feel proud of your country and everything. And optimism is going abroad now. It's like, okay, how far can we go? It's like, I know we got to pull the reins back. It's just the first match, but it was exciting. And I, for one, am ready for the next one.
Absolutely, man. Next one coming up here in a couple of days, man. Listen, I mean, one of the co-host nations, man, you had to want the smoke. You had to want to come out, man, and say, you know what, man, we stick our chests out. We playing on home soil, and we got to do what we got to do, man. And the new man in charge, Mauricio Pochettino, man, he has breathed something new into this team, and I'm pretty sure Reg and Rox will expand on it. Listen, we know that this U.S. team has struggled, man, but I think we've gotten into an era now where we got a lot of players that play over in Europe. We got a lot of guys that understand like the intensity, the toughness there is the World Cup. There's no let's be real about it. There's no other tournament on the planet that's going to be played like the World Cup, man. When you fire this up every 4 years, man, everybody comes to play and they bring their best. And I think the United States is finally in a place where they have the talent, number one, to compete at a world stage. And number two, just to understand, like, listen, this is how it's going to be. The emotion, we got to bring it and want the smoke every single time we step out on the pitch. I think that's some of what Pochettino has breathed into them thus far. And I think that you saw that with Paraguay, man. They went out, they looked hungry, and they was like, you know what? Let's do this, man. and let's move on to the next one, man. I know we had a injury with one of our key players. I'll let Rox and Reggie talk a little bit about that. So I'm gonna pass it over to Rox to you this time, Rox. USA Paraguay, man. Your thoughts on this kind of new look USA?
Man, look here. Nobody expected that, including fan. Like, I've been rooting for this team. I've been arguing with Ken for 2 years, 3 years straight, talking about stop playing with the USA. Yes, they have some issues to sort out, but we need to respect the possibility that this group has, and it's just going to need the right situation. And this is that situation. What they did to Paraguay, bro, I don't want to hear nobody talking about that was a weak team. No, absolutely not. I pulled up the stats as you were talking because I just want to pull out a few highlights here. U.S. possession, 59%. Felt like 75% if you watch the game live. They could not breathe. As soon as they got a foot on the ball, somebody was on their ass taking it right back. So I feel like 59%, the stats is wrong. It was 75. Let's go into attempts on goal. U.S. 16, Paraguay 9. On target, 6 for the U.S., 1 for Paraguay. 1. Bro, they beat the brakes off of Paraguay. Like, the scoreline itself doesn't even tell you how bad they beat that team up. Like, that game should have been probably 7-1. I want to talk another one. Line breaks, attempted line breaks for the U.S., 223. Paraguay, 130. Successful, 163 for the U.S., 60 for Paraguay. Bro, that's embarrassing. Like, are we even playing a professional team at this point?
They were smoking.
What? 5 yellows. This is my favorite one. 5 yellows for Paraguay, 1 for the U.S. And this is a key one for me because it's one thing to want the smoke and another thing to want the smoke and then get consumed by it. And previous teams have done that. You get out there arguing, you doing the Miazga, your short thing, like all that is – you still got to win. They went out there, wanted the smoke, controlled the game, dominated from start to finish, and said, we are on the stage this year. Do not play with us. If they can continue that form, who knows what can happen, bro? Because we see clearly who we thought was it, ain't it. France had a tough go today. Spain had a draw with a team that wouldn't even been in the prior World Cup. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it's looking rough. It's looking rough. So if they just got to keep their heads on, stay together, do what they know they can do, adjust slightly depending on who they're playing, and get to these wins.
Man, absolutely, man. You said it, Rox, man. You really hit it hard. Like, I felt like they had something to prove. They really did have something to prove coming off the what was built as them getting ready for World Cup was Copa, and they had an embarrassing show in Copa America, if I'm not mistaken. I was at the game in Atlanta when we played Panama, and I think it was Whale that got sent off. Just mixing it up with we all know that the kind of history that they have with Panama, and it really wasn't a good outing. And then you had to move on, and I think they had to end up beating like Uruguay or something to advance. And we kind of know where that was going to stand. But this is a new and improved team, man. Literally, it looked totally different, man. Totally different, Reg. If I'm not mistaken, man, with all the stats that Ross just gave us, this looked like a totally different team.
Oh yeah, and it was also about the mentality of the team. And you and I were talking a little bit about that too, a little bit earlier, Leo, before the show. The mentality is, see, a lot of these players already play at some of the top leagues, some of the top teams in Europe, and so they're used to that kind of intensity. They needed that for the World Cup, and they needed a manager who knows what that intensity looks like, and he demanded it of all of them. And so the thing that got me, and if we look in the stats, there was one sequence that led to a goal where they had 26 successful passes. The opposition did not touch the ball. 26 passes that led to the goal. All right. That was incredible. I was like, this is not the U.S. And then I got another one I was looking at too. So your boy Chris Richards, man, he was 83 of 83 completed passes.
Body bag.
Insane.
100% accuracy. That's the most by any player in the World Cup since 1966. You hear me? Since 66. All these teams, I'm talking about Brazil, I'm talking about the Spanish teams that were killing people at one point, Italy, they looked very good. And everybody's talking about Paraguay, but keep in mind, for the World Cup qualifiers, they beat Argentina. You know, they were beaten to qualify for this. They were beating some good teams. So these are not busters. Yeah, they beat Brazil. So these are not busters.
Got quality players on that Paraguay team, man. Obviously, you know, anytime you start talking about teams in South America, you know, the Paraguays, Uruguays, even Ecuador, of course, the powerhouses like Brazil and Argentina. Ain't no punks down there, man. So if you make it out of there, man, it's a tough goal. So yeah, I mean, you know, those of us that those people that are casual fans might want to say, okay, well, it was just Paraguay. It wasn't like Spain or France. But listen, like you said, Reg, Paraguay can hold their own with anybody on the planet, in my opinion. So, you know, I don't take for granted that, you know, we was able to put belt to ass against the boys, man. So I'm looking forward to Friday. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the United States will take on Australia. And don't sleep on Australia. Australia is a very good squad as well. I think that's going to be a 3 o'clock local kick here on the East Coast, man. So I'm looking forward to see what the United States does in this second one. A lot of pressure is off. I think that for most of the teams, man, getting that first win takes a lot of the pressure off. Even though you still have to play, you still have to compete. You got to keep your players fit. You got to keep them focused. You don't want them to once say, oh, well, we put 4 up on Paraguay. You know, we can kind of coast. Nah, like you said, Reg, Pochettino is going to tell them, hey, going into this Australia game, you don't know what can happen. Keep putting your foot on the gas and get into the round of 32 and then let the chips fall where they may, man. So don't take anybody for granted, because like I said, everybody's going to bring you their best. You still got Australia. You still got Turkey, who's a tough team as well. Turkey is a tough team that ended up in the draw in that pool with the United States. So we'll see how it all works out here with them on Friday. So look, fellas, I want to talk a little bit about some underdog stories here that happened. Banks will kind of clue you in on some of the significance of some of the things that happen in some of these underdog stories. The first one I want to talk about is an underdog story that it felt good at first, and then the wheels fell off. It was this past Sunday, Germany against Curacao. They played over in Houston. Obviously, it was probably a party in Houston. Curacao, if I'm not mistaken, if not the smallest nation. I want to say it's between them and Cape Verde. I don't know. I think they both, you know what I'm saying, you know, you could count maybe on the hand who's larger, but Curacao took on Germany. You know, Reg, we talk about these smaller nations, especially some of the Caribbean and African nations, and just the pride, man. First time Curacao ever makes it to a World Cup, and they go out there and they play Houston. They play Germany in Houston. Now the score line, it got away, but there was some early like emotion, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. But Reg, talk about like the significance and the importance of the visibility of seeing a Curacao out here with the World Cup.
Well, you know, now that they've opened up the World Cup to 48 teams, right? You got 48 different clubs. You're going to start seeing people who you probably would not have seen before. And it's like you said, it's the visibility, because people don't even know, like, some of these players are very good. You just don't see them stateside. And if you're following the Premier League or something like that, some of them, you know, are playing in the championship. You know, some of them are playing in Ligue 1, some of them are playing in Serie A, so you don't know how good they are. So the visibility was really good, because I promise you, some of those players, man, might get snatched up before, you know, at least in the next January window, because they were balling out of control. And you have to have a fearlessness when you're in the World Cup, especially when you're playing some of these big teams. And that's what they did. When they scored and tied it up 1-1, look here. Man. Folk were losing it. There were people, they didn't even care whether or not they won. They were crying in the stands that they scored.
Absolutely. The emotion of it, man. Banks, you know, as you avid sports fan, Banks, as you know, man, like, you know, when you see a team like Germany take on a Curacao, I have to tell like people that don't really follow soccer, I have to give them the analogy of what it would be in comparison to. Obviously, Germany would be considered, you know, an Ohio State, right? You know what I'm saying? If we're comparing it to college football or Alabama of sorts, right? A powerhouse that has, you know, only second, I think, to Brazil with the most World Cup championships, that take on this little bitty nation down off the coast of South America, Curacao, who's making their first appearance. And they walked out there, Reds. And when I watched it, man, I was like, you know what? They like you said, they were not intimidated. You know, initially they came out and they played. And when you know, Germany, of course, they put foot on gas, got the early goal. Then all of a sudden on the counter, you see Curacao go down, and it's like, okay, are they gonna put one in the back of the net? And they did. And it's like you said, the eruption, and that's the beauty of the World Cup, man. The emotion of the fans of Curacao that were in that stadium, man. They'll never get that feeling, man. They'll remember that feeling for the rest of their life. I mean, even though they got smoked, we'll talk about that here in just a second. But them tying Germany, man, in the first half of a World Cup game, in their first World Cup appearance, man, it was crazy. It was nuts. Rox, I'm gonna pass it over to you, man. Just the visibility of having a team like Curacao, man, in the World Cup, like I said, like Reg was saying, bumping it up to 48 teams, and then having some of these players on some of these smaller nations just have the visibility on this stage, man, the importance of it.
It's super important. You know, we always hear in various other spaces that representation matters, right? This is the World Cup. So logistically, yes, it's difficult to get all these nations to the spots they need to be in. You know, dealing with all the geopolitical issues is difficult. But on the flip side, just from like a pure sporting perspective, having these nations get their opportunity to compete and learn and grow. And, you know, this might change how the nation looks at the game in their country. And maybe they can find a little bit more money to invest in the game to increase their opportunity. We've seen this happen with Jamaica, right? Like men and women's teams. Like we know the women were like, they're on the verge of being incredible. They need some money. And we were able to see that in tournaments. So same thing for Curacao. Like this is an opportunity for them to say, hey, we're here. We have some ability. We need some investment. Maybe somebody's going to come in with some money and bring it for them. Or maybe they'll, you know, like I said, find some other ways to generate that money internally. But it's a beautiful thing to watch, man. When I saw them score against Germany, I said, uh-oh, it's about to be one of them World Cups. Sign me all the way up for this, because that's what the game is about, man. It's like you bring your best, we bring our best, and let's see what happens, man. We know some of y'all think y'all got it in the bag, but we about to find out. And that was a we about to find out moment of all time, man.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of the World Cup, man. It's the beauty of sports, fellas. You know, I always say, you know, sometimes, you know, we get in our own heads and we want to look at teams and we want to look at, say, on paper, like, oh, okay, this is Germany against Curacao. This is Spain against Cape Verde. And we want to say, you know what, you know, this might be a mopping. And in the case of Germany versus Curacao, it was. But we'll talk about Cape Verde and Spain in just a minute. But I always say one of my favorite things in sports is you got to lace them up. You got to lace them up. You got to lace them cleats up, got to lace them shoes up and go out there and play it. And those of us that have played competitively, I don't care if it was Pop Warner or professional, know that, hey, when you step out on the court or on the field or on the pitch or whatever, man, everything changes. And you go out there and you put your best foot forward, man. And that's the beauty of it, especially in the World Cup, when you get to see nations like this go out there and represent their country, man. Obviously, we'll talk about Germany, Banks, here in just a second, man. Any thoughts on seeing some of these smaller nations, Banks, compete in the World Cup?
Actually, I did fell down a rabbit hole, saw Cape Verde's celebration here in Atlanta, and how they just drawing a tie with Spain. You know, they thought they won it all the way they were carrying on. And then I started looking at other videos, and that's when I saw Curacao had their watch party, and they had DJs, they had the decor, they had everything laid out, and that goal, they exploded. Like, what? And I'm like, okay, it's just a goal. Like, calm down. You know, it's still got some time left. But I didn't grasp the importance of for where they came from and for what that meant to them. like you said, you had some guys hugging each other like it was the greatest thing of all time, and that was special, I guess. And yes, they got boat rocked, boat raced, whatever the word is. They got BTA to them, but I don't think they really care the fact that they just got one goal, and that was enough for them.
Absolutely, man. It's the emotion of it, man. It's the representation, like I said, man. All that wrapped into one, man, and that's the beauty about the World Cup. Listen, so let's talk a little bit about Germany before we move forward and talk about the game that was played here in Atlanta. I know y'all here, Spain and Cape Verde. We're gonna get to it in just a second. I want to talk to Ross a little bit about Germany, man. Listen, we know that Germany is the big bad wolf. They are the machine. Even when they've had off years, this German team has always produced killers, and they're always gonna be one to watch. I mean, they got, Curacao scored that goal, tied it up. And I don't think, I think that really kind of slapped them. It kind of woke them up. They put the smelling salt under their nose. I looked at the intensity during the hydration break because they showed the hydration break when I was at the fan festival that, their manager came out during the hydration break in the first. He was like, yo, what? I don't know what he said. He was like, yo, what's going on, man? This is not what we do. And immediately, man, it's like they put the foot on the gas and they didn't take the foot off, man. And they came back second half, I think immediately within the first 5 minutes, scored a goal, and they never looked back. This German team, man, is a team to watch. Sneaky good. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They did play a lesser quality team in Curacao, man, but you saw the quality of football that this German team was playing, and I was very impressed, Ross. I was very impressed.
Yeah, man, they are always in the conversation. This year, they are absolutely in the conversation after that result. I do want to say, though, it's going to bring it back to the U.S. a little bit, but I just want people to understand what actually happened in that U.S. game. Look at the stats on FIFA's website of that Germany game and then put those next to U.S.'s stats versus Paraguay. Two totally different teams, way more damaging numbers on the U.S. Now, you put those U.S. numbers on the Curacao stat line and then imagine what the score line might have been in that game. You know what I mean? But again, just throwing that out there for people to keep that in mind. But Germany, them some bad boys, man. I feel like this is crazy to say, but I feel like they sick of eating sausage and sauerkraut. And they trying to get some more action going.
That's
so
what
I'm out. We about to show out this World Cup.
My man crazy. I'm out. I can't.
Look, Reg, before we talk about what happened here in Atlanta, man, your thoughts on Germany minus the sauerkraut and sausage.
Hey, man, look, I got to piggyback on that just a little bit. So I wanted to say this. You have to understand, if you don't understand by now, these bigger countries, these more powerful countries, whatever, they're getting wake-up calls, whether it's a draw, whether they only get 1 point out of this, right, or they're losing, or they come close to losing, or if in the case of Germany or Mexico, they come back, and they win. You have to decide, are you going to play the badge or are you going to play the team that's in front of you? And I think fans, of course, are guilty of that because we're passionate, we're supporters, we support the team regardless. But the players have started to do that where they see the name of the country or they see the badge. What kind of kid is this? Who makes this? Oh, we going to kill. They should know better as professionals. You play who's in front of you. Don't look at that badge. You will be upset. And for those players who play on some of the larger teams in Europe and have been upset by smaller little teams, they should know better. So this was a wake-up call, like, okay, check that, and get on your game. So I think Germany is a sleeper. But I think, like Mike Tyson once said at the start of his career, and the start of Mike Tyson's career, I don't know if y'all remember this, Mike wasn't, he was fighting a lot of hand-picked guys. He was, he's doing a lot of highlights, and he was knocking people out in the first round. And so somebody said to him once, they said, so how do you feel about fighting, you know, all these lesser known fighters, whatever. And so Mike looked at the camera. He said, you know, I did what you're supposed to do to bums. I got rid of them quick, right? So if you are Germany and you play a smaller team, you show respect by putting your best foot forward. You're supposed to beat them by 7-1 if you play like you got some sense. So that's my opinion on Germany. But yeah, they're tired of eating what they eating. So they need to get on it.
Hey, man, absolutely, man. Germany is gonna be one of them teams, man, that I think, you know, is gonna make a full run here. Of course, obviously, we still haven't seen some of the other powerhouse teams. I think, if I'm not mistaken, tonight, you know, the defending World Cup champions, they play tonight. I forgot who they playing. Somebody could remind me of who they play tonight.
Argentina and Algeria.
Okay, Algeria. So they play tonight. So the defending champs, they're gonna fire it up here in just a minute. As Norway and Iraq, they're playing right now. I think Norway is up 1-0, if I'm not mistaken. As I take a glance over at the screen, man, got a lot of stuff going on. All right, fellas, let's talk about it. ATL, the first World Cup game. History was made in Atlanta, Georgia, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium as España took on Capo Verde, man, over there in Mercedes-Benz on Monday, man. It was a scene, like I said, it was electric. I went to the fan festival on Sunday. Man, Cape Verde came over and showed out. I ain't ever seen this many Cape Verdeans before in my life. I knew they existed. You know what I'm saying? My Portuguese ain't up to par, but we was in the park, man. We was having a good time, man. I was talking to a couple of them, man. I think they got a big up in the Northeast, if I'm not mistaken, like around New England, they got a lot of Cape Verdeans up in that area. I talked to one of the guys that came in from Cape Verde, and I think one of the direct flights over from Cape Verde goes into Providence. So I think they got a big base up there of people from Cape Verde, man. But listen, they drew with the monster. They drew with España. This is huge. This is huge. I talked about how, you know, the significance of Alabama taking on Curacao, who was like, you know, a smaller, lesser team. This was one of those, you know, Division AA FCS schools that literally, you know what I'm saying, took down because, you know, so nobody lost. It was a draw. But you got to understand something. In this sport, man, when you draw something in this tournament, when you take points away from another team, it makes it that much harder. This puts a little bit of pressure on Spain. I don't think Spain will have a problem actually getting out of the group and moving into the round of 32. But hey, this was a slap to Spain, man. For real. They was like, hey, look, we got to take it back to the drawing board. We got to figure it out. And that's no knock to Cape Verde, because the expectation for Spain is to roll this thing into the round of 16 and possibly the semis and to win it all. But it's like, you know, Cape Verde came out, like you said, Reg, man, you know, they was like, you know what? We done laced them up. We on this field. We got something to say, Reg. And Cape Verde came out and they played it. Listen, they were on the back. I ain't gonna lie, they were on the back foot like the majority of the game. Spain was doing everything they could to get this ball in the net, man, but they just would not fail. Part of that was because of their 40-year-old goalkeeper, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in just a second. Red, your thoughts on Cape Verde, them Sharks, man, taking an 0-0 draw with España, man.
Man, I loved it. Every single second of it. I'm gonna start with the last part of the game first. People forget how close they came to actually winning the game. If that header at the end of the game had gone in, it'd have been a whole nother conversation. They were that close to winning.
We would have need a new roof in our stadium.
Oh man! Now look, everybody's talking about the keeper because he was Spider-Man and nothing was getting past him, right? Nothing getting past. I love that he stepped everything up, and people didn't know who he was. But it's not just him, because you think about this. They figured out how to get all those people in the midfield because they knew that Spain loved to go through the midfield to set everything up. They clogged that up, and they said, we're going to make you play us on the wings. Do you know they shut down Lamine Yamal?
Yeah, man.
They shut – listen, man, people didn't even know who these guys were. Them center backs, right backs, left back, they didn't know who they were. They were shutting them down. And I was
playing out
their
minds.
My mouth open. They was playing out their skin, because you know how it is when you the big dog, there's a target on your back, right? And people always step their game up, always. And here they are playing in this stadium, man. It was packed. It's the World Cup. They asked the manager before the game. They said, "How do you feel? What do you think your chances are?" He said, "I already won. We're in the World Cup. I've already won." So they were just balling out of it, man. I feel for anyone who plays them next because now they got a lot of confidence. Because what upset me, and it upset me, it's literally upset me. I'm watching, everybody's talking about what's going to happen and before the game. And they're saying, oh, it's going to be 7-1. It's probably going to be 5-0. And, they had a slaughter ready. They had the plate set up like, okay, I want the wings. You can get whatever else. I like the white meat. You get whatever, but we going to eat. And Cabo Verde said, no, you're going to eat these chitlins, and I ain't going to clean them. So, I mean, yeah, I was so impressed, man. But I want to say this too, though. The thing that I love about the World Cup, man, is also the cultures. When you see, like you said, man, you were at the Fan Fest and you saw people come out of nowhere. You're like, where are all these? So they put not just the team on the map, people who didn't know about Cabo Verde, where it is, and the population. Now they know. The people were amazing. I got in trouble. So my wife told me I can't. She already told me I can't go. My wife said, you can't go to Brazil by yourself because when you come back, I'm not going to believe you. Right? She said, you're going to add this to the list. You are not going to Cabo Verde.
Hey, man, listen, you said it, I didn't. Brother, like I said, man, winning. Curacao, winning. Of course, Brazil, winning. Cape Verde, winning. Hell, even the next game, we'll talk about Ivory Coast, winning. So, man, listen. So, from that standpoint, brother, yes, man, they were winning, man. They scanned through them crowds. I was like, yes, sir. And like I said, even at the fan festival, I was like, yes, sir. So, yes, man, these countries and the culture is winning over here in the States, man. So, because a lot of people, that I talked to, they didn't even realize what Cape Verde was. You know what I'm saying? What Curacao was. Breaking it down, and now people are actually understanding. And now, like Banks had to do some research and look at the culture of Cape Verde and Curacao. I'm gonna bring it over to you, Rock. So I don't go over to Banks first. So culturally, man, Banks, you saw the big bad wolf get drew by Cape Verde, man. But I mean, just from a cultural standpoint, man, actually knowing now about a country that you probably, I don't know if you had heard of Cape Verde before the tournament.
I'm actually brand new to Cape Verde. Now they got my attention. I didn't realize they had a following like that. I mean, shame on me for not, being in this bubble and what we call United States, but they have a huge culture and it's a very inviting culture, and I saw people that wasn't even part of their, country. They were over there celebrating with them and they invited them. And I was like, that is incredible to see, just on our soil, and we could take a page out of their book, man. That pride was enormous, watching them celebrate. And yes, a draw, which felt like a win for them and probably felt like a loss for Spain, but at the same time, I'm like, it was 0-0 and they was on top of the world. Watching Cape Verde, celebrate, I want to see more. And of course, Curacao, with them, I have some understanding with them. Of course, we have a couple of baseball players that's from there that's playing for the Braves as we speak. But Cape Verde, like I said, I had no idea, and that right there has me intrigued enough to say, yeah, you got a little small fan in me to keep watching.
Yeah, man, it's wild, man. Like I said, the World Cup does that, man. And just to put some things in perspective, man. Listen, we talk about these small nations, but they were once colonized by bigger countries. You take, for example, Curacao, which I think is a Dutch colony. A lot of those football players, I think, play over in the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken, if that's what I heard. Also, you take, Cape Verde, which used to be, it was colonized by Portugal. I think one of the players, Cabral, if I'm not mistaken, plays for one of my favorite teams over in Portugal in Benfica. So, these guys, some of these guys on these smaller teams, they have played in high level competitions, like you said, Reg. So they understand what this means. Yeah, there are a lot of players on these squads that don't really play at that high level, but they do have some visibility over in Europe and some other leagues. I think some of the guys on Cape Verde actually play in the MLS as well. So, it's a lot of visibility and a lot of different, things when you start talking about these smaller nations. Rocks, man, your thoughts again on this Spain and Cape Verde, man, before we move on and talk a little bit about Ivory Coast.
Shout out to Vozinha, man. Goalkeeper for Cabo Verde. They just incredible. The man went from, I heard he started at the start of this tournament, had about 50,000 followers, now has over 12 million. 12 million, bro. Like, what? You want to talk about taking your moment? This should be studied. Like, this is the type of performance that you will show in youth development classes for any sport. Of this is what it means to take your moment, to show up against all odds, knowing that you put the same amount of work in, if not more than somebody else. And just because of where you are, somebody has decided that you don't stand a chance. You don't have to listen to that. You don't have to accept that for yourself. What you have to go out and do is prove that you worked to be where you are, and you're going to make the most of the moment while you are out there. That was crazy. And then you think about what this means, how we were talking earlier about a smaller nation can now possibly get some more investment. This man went from 50,000 to 12 million. Capelli Sport is their jersey. You know how much Capelli about to make right now off of Vozinha jerseys?
They're about to kill it.
They're going to be sponsoring some bigger teams the next World Cup after what he did tonight. You know what I'm saying? So these type of impacts have like butterfly effects that just wave out, and you might not, like, we feel the weight now just because, wow, what a crazy performance. Like, they drew against the big giants of Spain. But when we look back, the nation itself looks back, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and says, hey, look at where we are today because of this one guy and this incredible performance that he put on in 2026 at the World Cup. We had so much, we had more visitors coming. Now people want to see, like, this is a world-changing performance for that nation, for better or for worse. You know what I mean? You might not want some of the people that's going to come visiting now to come visit, but they coming.
Hey, coming over there. Keep them away, man. Keep them away. Yeah. Like Rich, keep them away. But listen, man, shout out to Cape Verde, man, for real, man. Been fans of them, been fans of their culture for a while. Like I said, I was down there. My Espanol is muy poquito, man, but my Portuguese is straight trash. But I was able to communicate with a lot of the brothers and sisters that were there, man, and they were just like Banks, you said, man. I was there with a lot of them, and it was just so welcoming, so warm, man. Like I said, we were able to finally kind of communicate. That's how I was able to talk a little bit about how they got there, and they were just excited. And a lot of them couldn't believe it when I told them that I was actually from Atlanta. They were like, "Oh, yeah, you from here?" I said, "Yeah, I'm from here." They go, "Okay, cool." So, great thing for Cape Verde. So I'm definitely looking forward to the next game, man. All right, fellas, want to talk about a couple other things. Then we'll actually talk about some things that aren't the World Cup, but obviously, man, this is what's going on right now. 2 more games, and then we'll kind of circle around if anybody wants to talk about some offset games from the ones that we had listed to discuss. Ivory Coast, another one of those teams from the continent of Africa, man. They took on Ecuador. Listen, this was crazy. I watched this whole game. This was wild on Sunday, man. First of all, I gotta say this much, man. I think from a perspective, other than the USA and LA, and of course Mexico down at Azteca, right? Ecuador, I don't know what happened. Rocks, maybe you can explain this, or Reg or Banks. I don't know. I'm gonna kick this to somebody. Ecuador literally took over Philadelphia, man. It was nothing but yellow in that stadium. Did they take a bus all the way from Ecuador through Central America all the way up to Philly, man? I was on my phone trying to research, like, is there a big group up in how did this work? And I know they take it serious in Ecuador, but man, I'm gonna pass it over to you here first, Rocks, man. That was insane to me to see that big of a showing from a country. I think it's I want to say they said 18 million in Ecuador or whatever, man, but they showed up and showed out in Philly.
Man, listen, it wasn't just Philly. It wasn't just Atlanta. I was in White Plains, New York. It's Westchester County. When I tell you the whole damn street turned yellow for that game, listen, they outside. And that's the South American nations in general. But Ecuador, man, listen, they were outside. I was like, this is incredible to see. It's unfortunate that they lost, to be fair, they probably did it to themselves, putting that jersey on that damn Rocky statue. But you don't know what you don't know until it's. I bet you they know now. So yeah, they won't make that mistake twice. But yeah, man, that's just what it is for the South American nations, man. This is their game. This is what they are in it for. So it doesn't matter where. That game could have been in Iceland. It could have been in
Antarctica.
It could have been in Hawaii. It don't matter where it's at. They showing up, period.
Hey man, listen, they was out there for real, man. Just glanced over at the screen, man. Looks like Iraq and Norway, they fighting over there. I'm gonna check this second half out fully after we finish recording, fellas.
Yeah,
that's
man,
a good one over there.
Cups. You can already
Yeah,
feel
man.
it.
It's a battle, man. I was glancing over at it as we record, man. Listen, so Ivory Coast, they take on Ecuador, man. It was a dogfight from start to finish. Obviously, Ivory Coast was able to take 3 up there in Philly, man. But like I said, man, just to see Banks, we always talk about takeovers. You always talk about takeovers, man. And Ecuador, like Rox just said, man, they showed up, showed out, and took over everything. And like you said, though, I didn't realize it, Rox. I heard that they did put the jersey on Rocky up there, and I was like, yeah, that maybe they were doomed, man. Banks, I don't know if you saw that, man, but Ecuador, man, they took over up there in Philly. They didn't get the result. The team didn't get the result, man, but they showed up and showed out, and they were outside, like Rock said.
Listen, this was another video that I saw. Like a drone. I think they had a drone to fly over. I don't know what part of Philadelphia that was, but it's like it was pollen all over their streets. And listen, you said it best about, you did analogies about our teams here in the States in comparison what these teams are. The people down there in South America, they're going to rep their team. So you talk about the teams in South America, those are your Dallas Cowboys and your San Francisco 49ers, your New York Yankees, your insert popular team here kind of thing down there. They're going to travel with their team no matter where they go. They can go to North Pole and they're going to represent. Let me tell you something. That was pride. Every city that you saw when it was a takeover, it's pride. And you know that right there, you can't be mad about it because you have to expect it. You know, as this World Cup goes along, you're gonna see more and more and more takeovers. Listen here, I'm not mad at it. And then, like I said, this is part of the territory when you talk about World Cup.
Man, absolutely beautiful thing to see, man. Reg, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of that game, man. Like I said, it was a dogfight, man. You know, Ivory Coast is one of those teams that always come out of Africa fighting, chopping it up. Obviously, man, I see the kit that you got on, man. We don't want to even discuss them Eagles and what that travesty or whatever they got going on over there, man. But listen, Ivory Coast is one of those teams that always represent hard for Africa, man. They do, and they have a scrappy team, man. I go back to looking at some of my first World Cups, man. You know, Drogba comes to mind, man, when I think about, you know what I'm saying, Ivory Coast, man, you know, back in the day. And like you know, just I was drawn to them, man. Of course, obviously seeing people that look like me that play on a team like that, man. But they are a team that is not to be slept on, man. They really aren't.
And they had to find out. Ecuador had to find out, like you said, they tried to show up like them stinking Steelers. You know how they show up, they wave the yellow, the terrible towel, whatever, and they take over. I can't stand it. Can't stand them. Right? So Ecuador did the same thing, right? But you got a team where you had a star player who's literally stopped a civil war, right? That's the kind of power this team has. And they dug deep. And if you ever, I don't know if you can find the clip on YouTube or whatever, social media, you watch the manager when they scored the winning goal, you would have thought he won the championship. Man, he took off that. Man, he jumped up. He was losing his mind, and I was losing my mind too because everything was stacked against him. Everything. I mean, the crowd. I'm listening to the announcers. I'm like, man, and I'm tripping too because again, you play the badge or you play who's in front of you, and they were talking about the brother who scored the winning goal. Now I just forgot his name. But the brother scored the winning goal. He doesn't get a whole lot of time. He doesn't get a lot of playing time domestically, right? And they would talk about him domestically when he was playing, you know, at the club level. And he does this.
Amad Diallo.
Beautiful goal. Diallo did his thing, man.
Hey man, like I said, man, beauty of the World Cup, man. You know, I'm always about the underdogs, man. Even though I think in this instance, you know, Ivory Coast was not like a big underdog, but considering everything that was going against them, like we talked about, man, them pulling out that result and getting them 3, man, was huge. And I look for big things for them too, man. Obviously, I'm looking forward to, you know, Senegal played, you know, today. Obviously, we talked about that against France, but they're a tough team too. People that understand Senegal's a tough team. You know, South Africa, I think, might bounce back a little bit. Obviously, we talked about all the other teams from Africa, man. I'm so interested to see Congo making I think this is their first World Cup appearance, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if I'm mistaken, if this is their first time actually going. They'll be actually playing a match here in Atlanta as well. So, man, always looking forward to those watching those teams come out off the continent of Africa, except for that one, and I'm not going to discuss that. Fellas, look, man, we kind of press it up against the mark here, man. We could talk about all these games here, man, but just really quickly as we move on, we'll talk about a few other things. Banks, I know the United States, obviously you're going to have a vested interest in them. Is there anybody else? I know you saw some of these teams and saw some of the culture of some of these smaller teams. Is there anybody else that you're interested in looking at here moving forward?
Well, I'm pulling for the underdogs. I like to see the little man win. I'm telling you, Cape Verde got a fan in me, bro, and I really, really was intrigued of their culture, and it kind of, I don't know if I'm biased because it was in my city, but the fact of the matter is the heart that they showed, you know, and incredible, you know, I just never, you know, looking, you know, outside looking in, you about to play Spain. I'm like, okay, they about to get curve stomped, you know. Why are you even here, you know? But the heart that they showed, I'm talking about the team and I'm talking about the fans, that was like, you know what? Like Leo said, we're gonna lace them up. We're gonna come out here and play with you. You know what I'm saying? Do what you will, but we're gonna know that we were here. Yes, that's enough for me to pull for you, bro. So you got a fan in me.
Obviously, absolutely, absolutely. Quick takes, Rocks and Reds. We'll start with you, Reg, first. You know, for somebody that, you know, is firing up the World Cup, man, they're looking at, you know, some of the games. Obviously, we got a lot more to be played here in the group stages, man. Anybody in particular, man, that you would tell people? Because I know you like to give people, like, you know, some nuggets about who should they check out, man. So who should somebody be on the lookout for checking out moving forward in these next several matches that we got coming up?
Hey man, I'm going with Banks, man. I'm really pulling for Cabo Verde now. I'm really pulling for him because it's not just that they got the draw; it's what they had to do, the skill and the mentality to stay on game. You know, not some people under pressure. You know, they will forget the game plan, but they stayed focused, man. From Brazilian to, I mean, just go down the list. They all stayed on task. So I would say, keep watching them just to see their heart. But I also say France, and I say France not just because it's a big team and whatnot, but you got to look at it this way. And you know, you and I've had many conversations about this, Leo. But for those who may not know, you know, in America, the inner city is where you find us, where you find a lot of Black folk, right? And African Americans. But in Paris, in France specifically, they moved them to the outskirts. So they're in the suburbs. So the suburbs are the hood in Paris. And I don't care whether it's the northern, the western, southern, most of those hoods, it's like Rocks, you know how basketball is to New York, right? You come, you in the crib and they putting the ball in your hand, right? That's how it is for soccer for those in France. And so in the hood, they've been balling since they were knee high. And they got all that flair. And a matter of fact, so there's a lot of exploitation, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I would say watch France because it's not most of that team look like us, and they come from the hood, right? So that's like if you take Skip to Malou, if you take hot sauce from Atlanta, if you take Ali Mo,
Professor, all those guys, yeah.
If you take some of them and turn them into NBA stars and then you put them in the Olympics, that's the equivalent of what you got now with the French team. And so you got somebody who's won a Ballon d'Or in Dembele, who's definitely from the hood. He actually pays for the kids to come to his games and whenever he's in. So Follow France, follow Cabo Verde. That's what I say.
That's what's up, man. Rocks, your takes, man. Couple of nuggets, man, before we move on.
Yeah, man, I got to be the oddball, but there's a valid reason. There's a valid reason. So I got to show some love to my second home, which is Japan. For those who don't know, I lived in Japan for like 8 years. So I've always been a fan, love their spirit, love their fight. And I love watching them evolve as a footballing nation because they're basically on the same timeline as the U.S. Their domestic league started in 1994, 2 years before MLS, and they have promotion and relegation. They have second and third division there. They're doing a lot of things in the same way we are. They're trying to convince a nation whose national sport is sumo to come out and play soccer. They love the game. They invest in the game, but they still have quite a ways to go to compete at the highest level. And we're seeing the same way we have our golden generation here in the US, they're having that now in Japan because their team right now is also, they're all playing at big teams in Europe. Back in the day, you had 1-2 guys at most. You know what I mean? My favorite player of all time is Nakata because I learned about the game from watching him. I saw his style first while I was living there. Like, yo, this dude fly as hell. He got on the leathers with the cut and this, that, and that. Oh, yo, who is that? Oh, he's a soccer player. Oh, word. Yo, we got any soccer around here? I want to go check. And literally, that's how it started for me. So I always show love to Japan. Their game against the Netherlands was phenomenal. Great result for them. Hard fought, well played, super tactical. I didn't like all the crossing they was doing. That was blowing me, but they shut me up with that equalizer to make it 2-2. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what they do in the rest of the tournament. I will definitely be keeping my eyes on them.
And I didn't mean to cut you
Yeah,
off, Rocks,
absolutely,
man.
man.
Shout out to Japan and their fans for being so grateful to. They cleaned their stadium. They cleaned the
Yeah.
stadium, dude. And I saw that. I thought that was so wow. Like they felt like they said explanation of why they did that. It was a gratitude of being invited to, to their, the facility, and they're gonna take care of the facility. The players cleaned up their locker room and put everything back, and they gave a big thank you note on the. I'm like, wow, like that. That's just the little things, that right there would go a long way for that team, and I was very intrigued to see the fans and the players do that.
Yeah, 100%. That is real Japanese culture. You know what I mean? It's not a perfect society by any means, but that's a real something that I took away to this day. You know what I mean? Like how you're saying those little things matter. My Uber rating is so high because of what I learned in Japan about situations like that. I get in the car, you don't make no noise that's unnecessary. You're not sitting on your phone back there yapping. I got that from Japan. Same thing on Airbnb. My rating, every time I get a review somewhere I stayed on Airbnb, they're like, damn, he left the place cleaner than it was when he came in here. And they're just like, yo, thank you. Like, please come back anytime. You know what I mean? I got all of that from Japan because that's the real culture there. Like their idea that we are all responsible for our well-being collectively, not just my well-being. I'm going to take care of me and mine. We are responsible to make sure that everyone has some standards, and all of us can learn from that.
Absolutely, man. That's what I was about to say, Ross, man. We could all learn a little bit from Japan. Like you said, not only the fans, Banks, but the team also as well, the condition that they left the locker room in, spotless. One of the things that I want to kind of highlight, man, of course, just from a cultural perspective and from something that I think that's pretty cool is I just talked about the Democratic Republic of Congo, who will actually be playing. They actually be playing a game here in Atlanta. I want to challenge everybody that watches this podcast to do a little research on that country, number one. And number two, there's something very interesting that I saw as a fan group, and I'm going to be very interested to see it when they play here. There was a prime minister, you could do the research, a guy by the name of Patrice Lumumba, if I'm not mistaken, who was one of the prime ministers of that country. He was assassinated, and there was some political things around that that actually bring us to where we are now as the country is Dominican Republic of Congo. But there is a super fan of Congo that does something very, very cool at all of their games. There's a fan that stands for 90 minutes. They have a statue in Congo of Patrice Lumumba, and he actually stands for the full 90-minute length of the game and poses in the style of that statue of Patrice Lumumba. So he does it for the full 90 minutes. He actually came. He's here in the United States. He got here with the Leopards, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna be at the games. So I'm gonna be interested to see if he does that, man. Their supporters have been going crazy, yo. Like over in CAF, they were like they was a fool. I don't think they're ready, Reg. I don't think they're ready for Congo, man. I don't think they are. But that's something really interesting to watch from a cultural standpoint, man, is to watch this guy and watch, like, just the pride that these people have in their countries, man. Like, we have pride here, obviously, man, but, we talked about these smaller nations.
You have arrogance.
And how much pride that part too. So, yeah.
But you know what, though? But I got to say this, too, though. I mean to cut you off, but I got to say this. He ended up making it for this World Cup because the team said he needs to be with us. And they petitioned and they pulled out. You know how hard it is to get into this country. They were able to get him the visa, the transportation. They did all of that. The president of the country got him a car. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the kind of things, because Lumumba, anyway, like you said, the political stuff, but people are going to learn how big a deal it is for him to be here. He practices standing on, he has a small podium, and he practices standing on it for 45 minutes at a time. And he does, his arm never comes down.
It's amazing.
It never comes down.
Kudos to that man, to sit there and watch him do that. And then you got all the people, all the fan supporters around him doing their thing, going side to side and everything. And he just standing there. And it's like, dude, like I had a problem standing for 10 minutes, dude. Like I was like, my knees about to give out. So let alone a whole 90 minutes, dude. Kudos to you, sir.
Man, listen, I mean, it's the beauty of the World Cup, man. It's all of the storylines are so intriguing to me, man, when we start this thing up. It's just like the Olympics, right, man? You start seeing culture, you start seeing these stories. And like I said, no matter what was going on geopolitically before and what's going to go on after, like at least we're going to get a chance to watch some good feel. Like we just talked about it, fellas. Feel good story with Capo Verde. Feel good stories with nations like Curacao and Congo, man. So this is what we get to do right now as the world watches the World Cup, man. Listen, we're going to talk about a few other things. I know Rock wanted to do it, but look, we got to go, man.
Can I slide in one quick joke? The mascot for DR Congo, after the tournament, he got to get on Power Slap, bro. I want to see what that right arm hitting for.
Hey, yo,
it gets strong, brother.
Man. He probably knocked the fire.
And the crazy part about it, man, he has no facial expression. Like he stands there looking serious, bro.
He's serious, man.
No sweat.
Holy sweat. How can you stand there and your team scores a goal and you have no excitement? You just standing there, like, dude, what?
That's what he gives. But see, that's the thing, man. That's what he gives to that team. And like Red said, the significance of it is they saw the importance of it. They saw what he does. Not only as a supporter, but you know what I'm saying, to look at him and to look at what he does and to, that's what he gives to the team, man. He practices, he's dead set. I watched the interview of him, man, and he's like, yo, I take this serious. Like Red said, man, I practice, I do my thing, man. I feel like, yo, this is it's serious. They need me to be there, and that's what I do, man. So shout out to him. And I get his name, and maybe we can fire it up and talk about him on the next podcast, man. Because they'll have a match, and hopefully we'll get to see it, fellas. And I'm pretty sure that whatever, when they broadcast this, they're gonna bring it up and they're gonna talk about it. And I hope that he gets his shine, man, and people can see him standing up there and do his thing, man. Listen, we're at the mark, fellas, man. World Cup talk, man. It was beautiful. Obviously, man, we got several weeks to talk about this. Reggie, Rocks, don't be shy. We'll definitely bring you guys back to talk a little bit more as the tournament progresses, man. It's always fun to talk a little soccer, man. Listen, Reg, I'm gonna give it over to you, man. Let the people know where they can find you at, brother.
You can find me on Facebook, first and last name, Reginald McKee. You can find me on Twitter. I ain't gonna say that on that other thing, but you can find me on there. I'm still on there at Reg3641, and then I'm on what is that? Threads. I'm on Threads and IG as MCREG69.
Cool. Rocks, let everybody know what you got going on up there, man.
I'm on Instagram only at Roxfontaine, ROXFONTAINE. Touch base with your boy.
Hey man, Rocks, I know you're not gonna do that, man. I don't know if you want to slip, like, you know, you got another page, man, that I love to follow as well, man. You want to drop that?
Oh, my bad.
What you doing?
Chop Soccer Pod. We on there too. You on G-Con too, right?
G-Con, Chop Soccer Pod, G-Con as well. Yeah, G-Con is pretty. You got so let everybody know about G-Con.
If you like vinyl records and R&B, hip hop, and jazz music, check me out. Also on Instagram, G-Con Hi-Fi. That's JIKANHIFI. I post my record collection over there. I talk music and vinyl nerd stuff. You know what I mean? We always find some way to nerd out. So between soccer, bourbon, watches, and vinyl, I should probably get a better paying job.
All right there with you, brother. I'm not into the vinyl. I'm not into the vinyl and the watches, but I got some. You know, I'm into the bourbon, obviously, man. And I dug down this rabbit hole of designer fragrances, but that's a whole nother conversation. Niche and designer fragrances. We'll talk about that later. Banks, let all your fans know, because people been talking about, like, where can we find Banks? So please let these people know. Let these fans know where they can find you at, man.
Before I do that, we forgot one guy that was another fan, big super fan in Haiti. Guy without his shirt, and they made a big segment about him, and he's dancing, and he's shaped like me and you, Leo. But he's out there, he's proud, and he's showing off his body. And shout out Haiti out there, who will also be playing in Atlanta very soon. Find me at Antoine Jarrell Banks on Facebook, or Baby Banks 80 on Instagram.
All right, you can always catch the ATL 3 Style podcast. Catch us, on Twitter, wherever you at, man. YouTube, Facebook, all that, man. Instagram, we there too as well. Also streaming, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, man. My man down there at King's Wings on Donnelly Hollowell, so he be streaming this, so you can catch us when you catch us, man. Look, we're going to have a lot of fun, man, a lot of things going on, man. Y'all be safe out there. And like I said, find a way to enjoy this World Cup, man, for real. It only comes around every 4 years. Listen, if you're a sports fan, man, I know a lot of cats, they really can't get into it, man. But listen, tune into a couple of games. I guarantee you, you will be entertained and you will thoroughly enjoy it. I guarantee you that. This has been another edition of the ATL 3 Style Live Podcast. We'll catch y'all.